Hi, I'm Gary Hoberman. Welcome to another episode of Coffee Codeless. And today I am privileged and honored to have Daniel Meyer here from Camunda. Now, Daniel, if I understand this right, is this your first job out of college? Was Camunda? Is
Yes,
that
it actually is. Yeah, I actually in college I founded a small company which failed horribly, but so this is my first real job. So I actually joined Camunda when I was still at university, and then everything was grew out of that then over time.
give us your story? Where did you go to school? Where was that university? Yeah, tell
Yeah.
us. Let's.
So I'm in Boston now, but I'm originally from Luxembourg in Europe. I then moved to Berlin at some point to study computer science. That's my background. And then while I was doing that, I was always looking at the industry, and I always wanted to figure out how I could get in where the real stuff was happening. And the real stuff in my head was somehow, and I don't know why that's the case, but the real stuff in my head was somehow connected to business processes. How organizations are going about, onboarding new customers, but then also servicing them and all of that. So that in my head was always the real stuff. And then I figured out, hey, there's this whole area in computer science that's called workflow. And that actually connects into business process management. And those business processes describe how organizations are doing that, right? Onboarding their customers, servicing their customers, and all of that. And then I could figure out a path how I could, make my way into all these organizations and have some impact on their processes.
I love it. And straight in college to Camunda, where you're a chief technology officer, and like our conversations, just you're going to hear this today, everyone, but like we've kind of lived a lot of similar lives with beliefs, and we are coming at the problem different ways, but it's the same problem, which is so cool to see how the two companies work together and solving that. And I've been in those worlds where you would see the Visio diagram of the process, and it's the entire wall of the office. It's like, that's actually how I got to know some of your Camunda employees as well, is when we were trying to solve that and said, here's the problem. here's the way it's done today. And it's amazing to see how far that could come. How many years now at Camunda, and your role within Camunda as CTO? Like tell us a little bit about what you're up to, and your interests also outside of Camunda would be great.
Sure, absolutely. So I started in Camunda in 2010, or in 2010, so quite a while back. My role right now is CTO, so I'm running product development, engineering, product management, customer support. Our product is fairly technical, so we keep support very close to the people who are building the product. And then a function that's called developer relations, which is all about educating the larger developer community about how process automation is a thing, process orchestration is a thing, and how they can leverage Camunda to automate processes. So that's a team that's within my organization as well. And then I do spend a lot of my time with customers. So our customers are typically large organizations, so financial institutions, telcos, healthcare, public sector as well, others. And I try to understand how we can be helpful, what they need, and try to strategically work with them so that they can get the most value out of process automation. So that's where I personally spend a lot of my time.
And how is the journey from the beginning days with an open source approach through the open source plus commercial premium approach? Like how has that journey been as well when you went through that? Because I'm assuming the customers that I know where we're jointly working, these are the biggest names in the industry, so they put you through the same ringer we get put through as far as security checks, controls, compliance, everything. So I'm assuming you've seen that journey as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's interesting. So open source for us, it just organically happened, right? Initially, I didn't tell you this, but initially Camunda was a consulting company. So we were doing consulting on business process management, but also on open source workflow engines, basically bringing those two things together. And then we collaborated in an open source project, which was called Activity back in the days. And then there we did a lot of work, and then we saw this opportunity to take that but bring it to a whole new level in terms of enterprise readiness and combine it with the whole value of BPMN as a common language between business and IT. And what we then did is we forked activity, and that then became Camunda. It was called Camunda back in the days, Camunda BPM back in the days. And then the core always remained open source. The community we built around that, the developer community, was always a huge driver of innovation in and around Camunda. But then we really hardened that core, made it very enterprise ready. And that is then how large organizations that we are mutually working on then are able to leverage it, because we made it really accessible to them, by providing enterprise level support, hardening it, and then also a lot of tooling that commoditizing using that open source core.
It's really interesting. So we have one major joint customer where on Unqork, we are working top down in organizations, CEOs, CIOs, it's the business leaders, and it's a platform that enables this transformation and digitization. That's what we're real, and it's a top down approach to basically drive change. Now, Camunda, you've been working, as you said, building developer communities. So bottoms up swell, getting the interest going. And we have one customer, and why we're here today is one major global customer CIO who basically said, look, we've got Unqork here, we have Camunda here with the engineers. I want them to connect. I want to basically bring these two together and show how workflow could be done. And I love the approach. So how do you think through, like you're doing developer communities and build up, and we're doing the top down education to CEOs and saying, here's why business-led IT is important. And Camunda is bringing it in and saying, here's how engineers could contribute back to that and bring that together. What do you think? What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think that's a perfect match, actually. And to me, engineers, and I'm not saying developers now, I'm saying engineers, have always been, agents of change and also agents of innovation, right? When you think back in history, a lot of disruptive innovation was led by, fundamental advances in engineering, all the way back to, discovering fire, probably, so that always, like, fundamental advances in engineering that was always an agent of change. And I believe that in large organizations, engineers can be change agents, but and I think this is where the fit is, because what you say with transformation and business-led IT cannot be on its own, right? You have to bring that together. So you need to look at, okay, where is the company going? What is our strategy? Where do we want to be? How do we facilitate that? And how can we then leverage engineers to achieve that in the best possible way? And I think with combining a product like Camunda with a product like Unqork, you can really facilitate that, because you then have Camunda that brings in the developer and the engineering innovation, and you can combine that with doing things at scale with a product like Unqork, because that brings you or enables you to bring in all the other folks who are not able to develop and participate in solution creation. I think that can, in that combination, that can be quite powerful.
Daniel, I got to ask. So it's funny, I use the word developer, and I always then say I hate the word developer. And it's like, so, and I did, when I joined MetLife as CIO, within the first month, 700 developer titles were changed to system engineer titles. And
Excellent.
like, so tell me, what is it about developer and engineer? How do you define the two? I'm curious what you think the difference.
Well, it's about what do you focus on, right? Developer means, oh, I can write code. But engineer means I can solve complex problems.
That's exactly it.
And that is right. And it's like, where do you focus? And I think it's many people can write code, but not everybody who can write code can solve interesting problems. And now, when I think about people on the business side, for example, not all of them can write code. Most of them can't, but many of them can solve interesting problems, maybe by bringing an engineering kind mindset to certain problems. And so it's not as black and white, maybe, as things were in the past.
I love it. That's the that is, and so it's funny because even when you mentioned the fire, I had done a presentation once, a big presentation. I used the Croods in my presentation because the Croods is like this kids movie I've seen 100 times with my kids, but it's and the whole beginning of the movie is like it tells them how bad things are outside the cave. Like if you get bit by a mosquito, you die. If you walk here, you die. If you, and so it just goes through and it shows how organizations have become, and I used it as a role to say organizations have become these microcosms of trying to kill anything that gets in it. And I shared with Daniel recently, we had a customer, CIO basically say to us something along the lines of, I know the business, said Unqork will work and it's going to pick, but I want to let the architects decide on the solution. And even though I know it's the right solution as CIO, I want to let them decide and go through the process because that's their. And I was just, I think I was complaining to you that day, Daniel, as we met, just because, like, to me, I remember taking over a mainframe group in Smith Barney and trading systems, and I was actually teaching them Java. I was like, and I remember the mainframe developers going, Java is not going to work. Like, there's no way it could scale. There's no way it could actually perform. There's no way it could do what mainframe does and
Yeah.
DB2 does, and Sybase can't come in, and C++ and all that will never work. And I had to educate them and bring them along the journey to teach them. And if I had stopped and said, like, you know what, I'm gonna let my team decide and the architects decide, we'd still all be doing COBOL. We'd still be doing mainframe COBOL for trading systems. And, so to me, it's just this mindset of like technology leaders. We work with many together. You and I work with many that are leaders and basically put their fist down and go, we are going that direction. We're going to do that with conviction, and any issues we'll get through. And there are those that basically just say, we'll see what they come back with, and we'll keep delegated down the organization. But what's your feeling on that? I'm curious.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, and when we had that conversation, I shared that, like, for us, it's often the other way around, right? We are often coming in bottom up. So developers select us, architects select us, and then we have to go to the CIO and make the case of, okay, why should you use something like Camunda to automate processes? And for you, it's the other way around. It's one of the reasons why us working together I think is a really good idea, because we can combine those two things. I think you need both, because and here's why. I think if you want to really drive sustainable transformation in an organization, that's hard, and that requires to make decisions that not everybody immediately likes. So, and that's where you need somebody who makes a bold decision, maybe from the top down, and takes on some risk, right, and says, okay, I'm now gonna put my my personal my personal career, I'll put that on the table and we'll do this. I believe in it. I'm making that bold decision. So you need that. What you also need, of course, is bringing everybody along, bringing the organization along, and also doing things in a way that is sustainable and drives sustainable change. And I think bringing those two perspectives together. So, making those bold decisions at the top, but then sustaining that with something that everybody can get behind. I think that's how you can really transform an organization. And again, one of the reasons why bringing those two products together can be so impactful.
I love it. I love the approach. And Daniel, we were, it was funny. So we talked a little bit before about also past attempts at, automation and process, everything from the rational rows, UDM models, and Corbin. So, and then this concept of, we've been telling the industry Unqork is no code and codeless for about 5 years. And we keep telling people what it's not. It's not a language. It's not, and we're about to tell people what it is. We're going to come out and basically, but your feeling on no code, I'm just curious because you've lived through this as I have in the past. And I'm just curious what you think.
Absolutely. So when I think back like 10, 15 years, I think things went in a horrible direction back then, right? Think back, and I associate a lot of that I associate with what was called back then model-driven development. So basically these, architect tools where you could, draw these very complex pictures, and then some code generation was supposed to happen, and that would give you software. And this failed, in my opinion. And back then, as Camunda, we anticipated that would fail. So that's something that we never wanted to be associated with and that we never wanted to be a part of. And we said, no, you need different approach. You can have models.
Did you have the UDM
right?
books? Did you have those UDM books from O'Reilly all over the place?
All of that.
I had them as well.
Yeah, all of that. And that was horrible. And it failed. And the thing is, I think it was done without an understanding of personas, right? It was like, we'll arm architects with something which they could use, and then they would create software. But what they didn't really understand back then was, it's different. So we have to enable more and more people to participate in software creation. And by the way, these people should also be people who are on the business side. And how do we enable them to participate in solution creation? I think that's something you have beautifully achieved with Unqork, but not in a way where somebody draws really complex UML diagrams, right? But in a way where somebody then can just specify declaratively what should happen, or the data and how it should be structured. And I think that's very different from that failed approach to low-code or model-driven development that we saw in the past. That's how I look at it.
I mean, I attempted to use it. My goal was always, let me do more work faster, better, cheaper for my business. That's it. My business, and that's the thing, is businesses lead technology, whether we like to say it or not. I mean, and I'm not saying technology is an order taker, because they should never be order takers. But like this, businesses are the ones with the budget. Business has the idea. Businesses are putting their own salaries on the line to make their goals, and we need to deliver for that. So that was I remember when the books came out, I was reading every UML book you could get your hands on, O'Reilly, and like I was attempting to use rational rows and all the tools, and those were, the Corber days, the Iona days, all those, like every technology you could do to do skeleton stubs, and it did not work. I think you said you called it the dark era. I love that. I think that's an exact way to say it. It was the dark era and period out there. I love it. Let me tell you, what do you think of generative AI now? What's your opinion of you can't go anywhere, and I'm assuming in every meeting you're with clients, the topic's coming up. There's
absolutely. Yeah, I think it's really, really interesting, and it will allow to automate things that we haven't been able to automate in the past. So, for example, when I'm looking at a bank, look at back office. There's all these tasks there for which I today, let's say I'm CIO today or COO today, I need people to do all these manual tasks. Some of that we were able to automate with RPA. That's great, but there is still a lot of work that's happening there that's manual, but it shouldn't be manual. And I think with AI now, we have a real shot at automating some of that or more of that. So that's one thing that I associate with that. And that's also something that we are hearing from our customers. Another thing is when I then think about, well, how can I continuously improve processes, right? I have my process, it's running, but how can I continuously improve it? There, I see a huge opportunity for AI. That's also something that we are exploring at Camunda, leveraging machine learning, leveraging AI to proactively suggest improvements to the process. So, okay, like here's some interesting insights that you maybe haven't thought about yet. I'm telling you something about the process proactively that you could now take into account and then improve. So just two of many, many things, but it's definitely a really, really hot topic at the moment. I don't know what you are hearing about it, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's interesting because similar to the conversation on rational rows, in my opinion, the way I would see it is like generative AI, it's magical. It actually is probably one of the first technologies I've stepped back and I spent the weekend talking to ChatGPT when it first came out and trying to see what it can do, can't do. We launched a web page immediately within a week of its launch where you could tell it, I want to build an app. I want to build a cybersecurity application for farmers in Houston. And it would basically build it. And it would build it in Unqork. And we have that. And what we came to understand is like it's amazing at understanding language and intent and getting that language to an intent to another language. But in our view, like it should never generate programming language. Programming language should disappear in many cases. And like the programming language, because would you ever let your business generate a rational rows UML document? And the answer is no, because it's going to generate Java code and .NET code and it's going to generate all this code that there's only a small population of the world that can understand it and edit it and read it, and that code is going to be on out to the elements. To us, generative AI, as far as a code generation tool, should never be used or used inside of tools that generate code for that purpose, because you're still generating code. It absolutely should be used to reverse legacy. So even for you, I am assuming there's many workflow companies out there that generative AI, and we're seeing this ourselves with you, generative AI could reverse those software companies into Camunda, into Unqork, into that. It's beautiful. It never could be done before. It's been attempted. It's never, now it could be done. It also, to me, I agree with you. It's a new capability. So suddenly it could be a call center activity or operations activity. It could be an email coming in. It could be, helping you communicate better with your client, the outage. Like, okay, there's an issue. Let's tell them in a way that and I'm fascinated by that possibility out there. That to me is like the art of the possible. Um, I'm a little hesitant on like some of our business models where like insurance, where like, could it be repeatable? Could you show a regulator the algorithm used that they would like understand your underwriting rules? So I think it's going to be a while before we see it hit the core business processes that are regulated. But like you said, I completely agree with the model out there. And is that the most, what is the most exciting thing in technology to you? What's the future? What's getting you like, yeah, I gotta ask, because that's the engineer's question at heart, is like, where do you play? And like, I'm playing video games again with my sons, which to me has been fun to get back into.
Yeah, no, I haven't played a video game in a long time, but AI is certainly interesting. I just sharing something so personally, I have been on a mission for the last probably 10 years to bring workflow to areas where you couldn't use it in the past, right? And primarily because of scalability and resilience reasons. And now this month, fingers crossed, but any day now, one of our customers will go live, and they will do financial payment transaction processing on Camunda with BPMN, and that is at volumes and at latency levels that weren't possible in the past. And now part of why I'm telling this is just bragging because we made that possible, but part of it is simply, I think with technology, technology at its best achieves the following. You solve an interesting technical problem, which in this case is the scalability issue for workflow, right? Interesting technical problem to solve. But in a way, that's not the core thing. The core thing is, well, what can we then facilitate with that? And in this, and here, what it facilitates is we can bring this paradigm of workflow, and then with, graphical model-based business IT alignment into areas where it couldn't be leveraged before, right? Financial payment transaction processing, it was all messaging, all dark, dark ages.
Yes.
Can't look into it. But now bringing technologies into those dark places, so to say, where you then allow business and IT to collaborate, I think that's where magic happens. And in a way, that's still what's keeping me up at night, like facilitating that.
It's, what's interesting, Daniel, is, and I grew up building trading platforms, and so nanosecond response times, you make a mistake and you take down the trading floor. Like, that's the stress. And so of course you don't sleep. But for us at Unqork, one of the areas we tell customers we don't do is that low latency, the high frequency trading, the nanosecond response time, and like this, we tell customers we'll be your order management system, we'll be your trade management system, we'll do the post trade reconciliation, and we're doing that. But like now with Camunda, they could actually do the full picture. I didn't realize that, but with that, so that's exciting to me as well. That's the area where like you could actually do the trade, the trade itself, which is amazing.
Yeah, we can't go all the way into algorithmic trading. That's still one step too far. That's like you have like super bespoke systems for that. But you can go into orchestrating payments between different participants, or orchestrating asset transactions, or things like that.
That's amazing. And by the way, like I love that the thing that excites you is the product. That's the way it should be, and that is absolutely the right approach. And this was Daniel. I think we're out of time. We could keep going. I'm no for hours, and this was awesome. And I can't wait to celebrate success with each of our clients where we're working together. And this is it's amazing. Thank you for your partnership and for Camunda's partnership here and for your leadership. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you.
Same, Gary. Onwards and upwards.
I love it. Onwards and upwards. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening. Take care. Bye-bye.